why don't we go around and introduce ourselves to each other?
I am Denise Smith. I am mother to Sammy.
And I am Heather Marloff. I'm part of the AEA staff and I'm the school psychologist.
I'm Mr. Wall. I'm the principal.
I'm Mrs. Neal. I'm Sammy's general education teacher.
I'm Mrs. Reed and I'm the reading specialist.
Okay, so the purpose of this meeting today is to discuss Sammy and his strengths and where we would like to see him improve, and we kind of want to work with you about where you would like to see Sammy improve and what you think his strengths are, and determine what kind of educational plans you have and things like that. So to start off the meeting, we'll just go around and say strengths that we all see in Sammy. If you want to start.
At home, Sammy is very independent and he works a lot and plays a lot, you know, on his own, and he does really well doing that at home.
Well, through working with Sammy, through testing, because that's kind of been my role with him, I've seen that he's really motivated. When he finds something that he's interested in, he really enjoys it, and he becomes kind of a leader for his peers when he gets to choose something that he really enjoys. So it's good to watch.
While working with Sammy, I noticed that he enjoys being very helpful, whether it's just stapling papers in my office or like maybe just helping me file or just talking. He likes to be very helpful.
Okay, and along with what Miss Marloff has said, when he finds something he's interested in, he is very enthusiastic, ready to go, ready to work, and has a huge smile.
When I read aloud, he's always the one paying most attention, and he's just really sweet, and you can tell that he loves when I read.
So let us know if you have any questions at any time, and we're going to ask you some questions throughout just to see if you have any input, and if there's something that you don't think of now, then you can go ahead and send us an email or communicate through the phone or whatever works best for you. Okay, well, so basically what this is an educational evaluation report. So what we did was we looked at all parts of Sammy, so in the classroom, out of the classroom, and we kind of observed him in all those settings and then did some testing. And basically what we're trying to determine is if Sammy has a disability or if there is a need for special education services. This doesn't mean that Sammy has a disability or that he will be in special ed at all. This is just something that we were looking into because we were seeing areas, as you were, that Sammy is struggling in. What we're going to talk about are some areas of concern that we identified, and that was reading, written expression, and behavior. So sometimes Sammy interacts with peers in some ways that that we would like to improve. So for reading, what we did was the DIPPLS assessment, which is like a basic reading inventory, and we'll kind of go into more detail about what that entails. But basically, he was a little bit below his peers since kindergarten for that. But we see that Sammy is able to demonstrate his knowledge of reading verbally, and so because the test is in a written form, we could see how that would impact his score. So that's something that we just took a closer look at. And then we looked at Sammy's behavior, and we noticed that specifically Sammy has difficulty with following directions, and sometimes he can get a little bit aggressive with his peers, and I think you kind of said that with his younger sister. He can be kind of aggressive, and sometimes that's just the siblings, but like we said earlier, when Sammy gets to choose what he's doing and he's really enjoying the topic, he becomes a leader for his peers. So that's also something that we looked into. So again, just to summarize, he likes to learn verbally through communicating with his teachers back and forth, so talking with them, using audiobooks, and then he prefers activities that he can choose. And so I think that that's something that we all would like to implement more into Sammy's education. So Sammy has received instruction on core reading and written language through the Iowa Core Essential Concepts and Skills. So he's received supplemental instruction for that, and his attendance has been good for all of that instruction, so we were able to successfully implement that. Sammy is a part of the Character Counts curriculum, which is something that advocates for respect for all people in our school community, and that's just kind of like a framework for how we kind of interact with each other, peers, and then teachers, and things like that. And that program focuses on people's positive behaviors. So when Sammy does something positive, that program is something that will allow him to be recognized for that. And we think that that's been really good for Sammy to be able to have his strengths acknowledged. The next section that we have to identify is whether or not the English, his English proficiency would be an issue, and Sammy is a native English speaker, as you know, so language is not an issue. And then we looked into the ecological factors, and we determined that there were no ecological factors that appear that would impact Sammy's behavior. So the next section we're going to talk about is educational progress. So progress means performance over time. So what we did is we looked at Sammy's performance with the educational standards over a 12-week period for reading. So for the first thing that we're going to talk about is his academics. So for the Iowa Core Essential Concepts and Skills, for literacy, it says that a second grader by the end of the year would be able to read and comprehend literature, which includes stories or poetry, and then more complex texts, and they would be able to read these with scaffolding as needed. And scaffolding is when the teacher assists Sammy at first, and then maybe they'll assist Sammy a little bit less than they did before, and then eventually Sammy will be able to do the reading on his own. So scaffolding is just a process that the teacher slowly moves away from the student and allows the student to demonstrate their knowledge on their own. Then another section that the reading talks about is phonics and word recognition. So students will be able to decode words, determine long and short vowels, and then when reading one-syllable words, recognize those, and then appropriate irregularly spelled words. So that's a lot of different word recognition for that. And then fluency, which would be his accuracy with an appropriate rate. So he would be able to read orally with the grade appropriate rate, and then express what he has just read and demonstrate his understanding. For writing, for the Iowa Core Essential Concept and Skills, there is a written expression section, and for this section, he would be able to write narratives that recall a short story or a sequence of event, and then write an informational or explanatory text, so that's more focused on acts. And so by the end of the year, with the guidance of his peers and his teachers, he would be able to edit and revise those stories. Do you have any questions so far about the reading or writing?
I don't think so.
Okay. So now we're gonna look at Sammy's response to the supplemental and intensified instruction that he received through reading and writing. And so we determined that Sammy struggled with reading in the area of decoding, and so decoding means that he struggled with picking out what was important in the text, and we noticed that this was more when he read the material himself, because again, we know that Sammy is an auditory learner, and so we figured that that is what determined his need in reading decoding. For a 12-week period, he received daily 20-minute sessions with Miss Reed, and we were able to implement those sessions 100% of the time because Sammy was great about his attendance, and so we were happy that we were able to do that, and we tracked that through logs that we'll kind of go over. For written expression, we found that Sammy struggles in mechanics and expression of his ideas, but again, we know that Sammy likes to orally express his ideas, so we know that he is capable of expressing his ideas in a different form than written.